First of all, thank you all very much for joining us again. I'm Neil from AC, and here at AC Entertainment Technologies, we are very, very proud to be the exclusive UK agent for Green Hippo. And today, Susie is going to start taking you through an introduction to Hippo. Now, hopefully you're all going to find this very, very informative. Just so you know, next week at the same time, we're going to be doing another one of these, which is all about 3D. So, you know, those of you who are getting a lot out of today, please put a date in your diary for next week and you can join us to learn some more. So I am going to hand over to Susie and let her educate you for a little while, and I'll be back to you a little bit later on. So Susie, it's all over to you.
Hello, I'm Susie. So I'm the training manager actually at Green Hippo, and I work to help train people as well as going to site and sorting out problems. So I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you can all see that. Can you see that, or is it black?
No, it's all good.
Okay, good, perfect. All right then, so we're going to start off in Hippo Launcher. So we're going to kind of run through the basics of Hippotizer. So we're going to start off in the licensing tab. We'll go through all of Hippo Launcher, and then we'll start the engine. We'll get you an output, and then we will get media in, and then we'll show you how to play back content. Now, if anyone's got any questions at all, just type them in the chat, and I think Neil will let me know or shout them out or something.
I will indeed.
Any questions that you've got. So hopefully this will last maybe 50 minutes, and then we'll have some extra time at the end if you've got some questions that don't quite fit into anywhere within the webinar that we've done so far. So first of all, this is Hippo Launcher. So is anyone following along at home on Play? You will manage to download it, you will following along. It's possible, okay. So we're going to go, first of all, we have the licensing tab. Okay, and the licensing tab tells us what our system is licensed as, and also how long our software assurance lasts. So down here, we've got, mine says Hippotizer Tiger Plus, so I'm currently running on a Tiger Plus. If you're running on at home in Play, you want to make sure it says Hippotizer Play. And the same at the top here, it'll say Hippotizer Play. If your system says Zookeeper, okay, it's not going to work. So you'll need to make sure that you go onto the website and put the play key in the box that's around about where my mouse is. If you just copy and paste it into that box and hit apply, then after a few minutes, it should change up here from Zookeeper to Hippotizer Play. All right, so it should say Hippotizer Play, not Zookeeper, if you are going to follow along at home. Down here, you've got your software assurance. So this is our start date and our end date. When your software assurance runs out, you can still use the software, everything will be fine, but you won't be able to install any new versions. If you want to install any new versions, speak to Neil and he will be able to sort you out with some new software assurance. Next tab along, we've got the Advanced tab or the Pre-Software Configuration tab. So the bits I'm going to kind of point out to you in here are the network settings. So you want to make sure that your network is set up before you start Hippotizer. So if I hit that, you should see here, we have two, we have our HippoNet and our data. Obviously, if you're following along on Play, it'll probably just say Ethernet or Ethernet 2 or whatever your network adapter is on your laptop. So you want to make sure you've got your network set up. So if you want to connect it to a Lightning Disk, for instance, you go into your data port, properties, TCP IPv4, and make sure you've got an ArtNet IP in there. The next thing you want to check is your display settings. So if we click display settings, you should see here we've got two screens. If you hit identify, we have number 2 and number 1. And this is just making sure that everything is connected and working before you get started. Also in here, you've got debug files if you need to contact support, Hippo Launcher startup, automatic startup, automatic EDID emulation, etc. It's all in this pre-software configuration tab. The next one we've got is shape. Okay, so shape is the 3D side of Hippotizer. So as Neil said, we're going to go through this next week. And this is kind of a whole 3D workflow, how you so how you can do moving LED walls, how we can do projection mapping, how do we have a 3D object, how does that work? So it's a real 3D workflow for Hippotizer. And the final tab we've got here is the Hippotizer V4 tab, okay? And within this tab, we have another 3 tabs. So we have current show, new show, and import and export show. So the current show, if you hit start Hippotizer, will start the engine and Zookeeper. And it will start it exactly in the same place where you left off. So it'll automatically save when you shut it down. And when you start it, it'll start up exactly where you left it off. Now, the new show tab, which is red, you'll see that this will delete everything that is in Hippotizer. It'll keep your media, all of your settings will be deleted, and you'll just be starting a completely fresh new show. So of course, this is really good if you want to start a new show. If you don't want to start a new show, don't press it. And then we've got import and export show. So once you finish programming, it's always a good idea just to export your show to an external drive. Make sure you've got a copy of it and a backup just in case anything happens. And then if you want to import it, you can also do that here. You can also use import and export. So if you programmed it on Play, okay, we can export our show from Play and we can import it into a real server, and that'll get rid of all your watermarks and everything. So you can play your show back exactly as you wish. Down here, we've got tutorials. So this will take you to our YouTube page. We've got the manual, which is on every single system. And the manual is quite, got a lot of detail in there. So if you need to know how to do anything, you want to have a look in the manual, and it'll tell you how to do it. Release notes. So if you're upgrading, you should check the release notes, see what's changed, see what's fixed, to make sure you can do an update without having to affect your programming. And just a license agreement. So if you're following along at home, if you want to press Start Hippotizer, or if you have already played around with it, you might want to press Start Hippotizer on a new show. So I'm just going to actually do a new show, and I'm going to hit Start Hippo and click OK. So the reason we have the engine and the Zookeeper, so the Zookeeper is like the GUI, so that's kind of like the steering wheel to the car. It allows us to navigate around, and it allows us to get different things, or allow different things to happen. And the engine is like what is actually playing back the content, and that's the physical kind of rendering side of Hippotizer. So the first place we're going to start is actually in the outputs. So I'm going to click outputs, and then I'm going to press configure. So before we can edit anything in the output manager, we have to press configure. So for instance, if I want to delete anything, change anything, we have to press configure. So we're going to press configure, and then we're going to press OK. All right. So now here I can delete my mix, and we'll end up with a screen that kind of looks like this. So on the right hand side, we have our outputs. So this is what is physically connected to your system. Now, if I come in here and click none, because if you are following along at Play, you'll be able to see your primary screen and your output screen. So generally the primary will be your laptop screen, and your second screen will be your output screen. So that'll be what's connected to your laptop. Now, if you're running on a server like I am, you'll see that in these settings here, we can choose, normally it will set to the output card, so you only see what's currently connected on your output. So this is what's physically connected. If you need to change the resolution of it, you can do so in this drop down here. This will also change it in Windows as well, so you don't need to worry too much about that, but this is where you would change it. On the left hand side, we have our mixes. So your mixes, it's like your creative space. So you would work out how big your space is, and then you would work out how big your space is, and then you can patch your outputs to it. So for example, if we had 2 projectors next to each other and we wanted to do a blend, okay, you would make it 3840 by 1080. minus the blend, so minus 10%. So I think it's like 3264 by 1080, something like that, 10 or 15% blend in there. So to change the size of the mix, we come down to the resolution here. So this is our mix size. We can type in custom. So for instance, we can make this by 1080. So this will be projector 1 here, projector 2 here. Or you can make it 920 by 1080. So you can make this any size that you want and you'll work out your size. So if you've got an LED wall, for example, you would make this the size of your LED wall. If you've got a whole space, we'll make it the size of the space within pixels. We also have the mode here, so this allows us to change the layer mode. So here we have 2 layers, 4 layers, 8 layers, 12 layers, 16 layers, and a notch mix. Now the notch mix is specially designed for notch. I'm not too sure if you guys know what notch is, but notch is a real-time generative content, and it allows you to play back different blocks. So it's a different way of doing content. And the notch mix just helps to really streamline that and means you're not doing anything extra that you don't need to do. So if you are following along at home, I recommend we do 4 layers, okay? If your laptop's not that good or it's a little bit older, you might want to think about doing 2 layers. But 4 layers, generally I find is okay on most people's laptops. So once we've got our mix and we've set up all our layers and we've got our resolution here, we then need to patch it to an output. So I'm actually going to patch it to my primary output, but this is just so that you guys can see the output during this demo. Obviously, normally you'll patch it to your actual output. So I'm going to hit new patch, okay? And you'll see here that we've created a viewport. So now a viewport has been created. Now this viewport is the same on both sides. So what we're doing is we're saying we're going to take this selection here of my mix and we're going to play it on this part of my output. So for instance, if I was to make this smaller, so you can use this percentage key here and make it 50% by 50%, and we can put it in this bottom corner. We'll see if we make my zookeeper, so you can see here this is where it's placing it on our output. Now I'm going to make it a bit smaller than that. Okay, so now you should see it down here. Now, if we were to change this size, this side here, bigger. Okay, so you'll see here that we've got the whole of the viewport in here. If we were to change this side and make this side smaller, you'll see now that we only have the top corner of it in here. So we're saying, let's take just this top corner and let's put it into this little section down here. Now, obviously, for the purpose of this, we're going to have it just like this. This is so you guys can really see the output. And then when you're finished, you can click Apply Config. Now, does anyone have any questions about Output Manager, or is anyone struggling, or anyone got any questions? Okay. So once we've done the Output Manager, then we're going to press our Home button, which is in this top corner up here. If you always press this button, it will always take you back to this home page here. This is kind of our central navigation point for Hippo. So that's this little Hippo head here. And then you've got your shortcut buttons here as well. So now we've got an output. We're actually going to go into our mixes. And we're going to add our mixes. So Hippotizer is a layer-based system. Layer 1 is on the bottom and layer 4 is on top. So if I click on layer 1 and drag up the level, we'll see an image. Now if I click on layer 4 and just choose a clip. So to choose a clip, you can just select a bank down here, select a clip, and then we just drag up the level. You'll see there that layer 4 goes on top of layer 1. So layer 1 is always on bottom, and layer 4, if it's in 4-layer mode, will always be on top. And then the ones in the middle will be in between. If you don't want to reset your layer, right click on it, reset, and that'll reset it back to its default. And to change level, we'll just do this. So if we're going to add a second clip on, underneath the preview, you've also got what we call a mix mode. So the mix mode will allow you to change different options about it. So we can put it into add mode, subtract mode, and this will do different options for your mix. The one that I find quite useful is Luma key. So for instance, if I have this logo here, it's on black, drag the level down slightly, you'll see there that it'll remove the black from it, and you can put any kind of logo you want up with the see-through background. So if you have a clip that's not alpha and it's just black, or a logo, so if you're on a job and they kind of give you a logo, it's really quick and really easy just to bring it up, just like that. So I'll just set that back to sprite. So underneath that, we have our media player. So you've got all your transport controls here, hold an in-point, play, etc. So this one here, Pong, is quite useful if you've got a clip that doesn't quite, for instance, this one, it doesn't loop, but this means that once it gets to the end, it will just play it back in reverse. So you're never really going to notice that the clip doesn't loop. Of course, it only really works for abstract clips. It doesn't really work for non-abstract ones, because obviously if someone's walking across, you don't want to suddenly walk backwards again. But yeah, for abstract clips, this works really, really well. A random frame picks a random frame, and obviously hold an output. So another really cool thing here, we've got inner loop point. So if you have a clip that is playing, for instance, we have inner loop, and what we can do is we can set the inner loop point. Grab it, put that back there. We can say, okay, play inner loop, and this will just loop inside the clip. So you might use this if you're doing like an award show or a drum solo or something like that, something that you don't know how long it's going to take. So for example, if you're doing an award show, someone gets from their seat and they have to walk up to stage. Now, you don't know where they're going to be sitting. You don't know how long it's going to take them to walk up there. How many people they might stop to and talk to on the way or whatever. So what this will do is this will just keep looping inside, and then when they reach the stage, you can simply hit OK, play to the end, and it'll just continue playing all the way to the end of the clip. You've also got audio settings here, and sync. So this is time code, or if you have multiple systems that you want to have in sync together. Another thing Hippo does really well is this slowing down and speeding up a clip. So we have what we call interframe blending. So this here we set at 40%, and this clip is still running very smoothly. It's because it kind of adds frames to create it to allow that to happen. Underneath, so this is just your media player section we've looked at so far. Underneath that, we have different inputs. So this machine has got a Vision SDI card in it as an option. So we could have an SDI camera, DVI, or composite camera. It's just showing black because there's nothing actually connected at the moment, but it is in there. So that's why we can see the options. We have a generator, so there's a few different options in generator. I find these quite useful for pixel mapping actually, especially if you don't really have much there. So the rain can work quite well. It'll give you like a stripe effect down. And so for quick effects for pixel mapping, the generators can be quite useful. Same for testing. If you need to do a color, kind of if they say, okay, we just want yellow or we just want red, you can easily and quickly either test it, or you can just give them a whole colored background. So that's generators. Yeah. The next one we've got is relays. So this works good if you have a second mix actually, and you can actually take all of one mix and place it all into the second mix. So that allows you to have kind of sub mixes. So you can have one mix that goes to your output, and then you might have one or two mixes which you'll relay down in So you might want to give your different people different control of different mixes that mix down. You have control of the main mix, or you might want to have cameras on one and just relay down all of your cameras. So it depends on how you've got it set up as to how you might use it. But relays can be really, really, really useful. The next option, NDI. So there's NDI cameras that you can get, as well as NDI apps for your laptop. So I find this useful if you can't have a capture card in your machine. You can run an NDI from your laptop and just plug it in over the network. So it just works over the network, and it'll bring the video source from your laptop straight into the Hippotizer. So that'll bring it in. Other Hippotizers you can NDI into each other. Cameras, yeah, or even from your phone now, there's NDI apps for your phone you can use to kind of talk to your Hippo. So with all of these options that we've just gone through here, it's possible to do any of the next actions to them. So the first thing, we've got a geometry, so we can zoom it out, move it around. Obviously do picture in picture if you need to. So we can say, okay, we want that there. Now, if you want to be a bit more accurate, so this is just in percentage, you can actually set it to pixels. So you can say, okay, I want this to be at 600 pixels by 10 pixels if you want, 0 pixels. So you can choose exactly where you want to put it. Double clicking anywhere will reset just that section to how it was. Video map on layer, so we're not really going to talk too much about this today, but this is for a lot more complex video mapping. So video mapper would normally use for LED walls. So if you're kind of doing an in and an out of an LED wall, you can use video mapper on there. And then of course keystone, so this just allows you to do keystone on layer. And again, double clicking, reset it. Underneath that, we've got live mask. So if you click edit, new, this will allow you to draw onto your output. So here, if we add a square, you can see that there's a square. If I zoom it in, we can do that. We can rotate it. You can move different points of it. You can show it on your output, so you can see exactly where it is. So this is designed to block out pieces of set, but to be honest, I've seen a lot of people use it a lot more creatively than that. In shows, you can obviously use alpha. So if you do use alpha, if you set your layer to alpha, you'll be able to see exactly through it. Turn off show points, see exactly through it, what's there, and how it looks. Here we have crossfade on layer. So this is especially useful, especially if you're first time using Hippo. So all you do is you turn on crossfade, you set your fade time, and click a different clip. I'll then crossfade nicely between the clips. So if we set it to 2 seconds, it'll crossfade over 2 seconds into the next clip. Now, if you turn off auto fade, you will get some more advanced options. So for instance, we could select a clip, you could change the color, you could move your geometry if you want. So we could say, we'll put it down here. And then when you press take, it'll crossfade into that clip. Double clicking, reset it back, and then hit take again. It'll reset back. So that's without auto fade there. Underneath that, you've got all your colors. So if you want to change your colors, you can do. I find it always best to do subtractive color. So if I want to make it red, I'll pull out my green and my blue and I'll get a red clip. If you did it the opposite way, for instance, if you add red, you'll see there that it's a lot more washed out. So you're actually a lot better just doing subtractive color. There's a picker here which will do the same thing. It will just subtract it for you automatically if you prefer to work from the picker. And then you've got all your color shift and stuff here as well. Next along, we've got all the effects. So there's a lot of different effects here. So here, for instance, is a noise effect, and we can change what that effect looks like. There's a lot of different ones here. So the rings effect, for instance, it'll put rings on it. And if you actually layer this with other effects, it can really change how a piece of content looks. So if you only have a limited content budget, all of this stuff here, apart from 12 and 13, all come with the server free. So actually, if you've got a limited budget, you don't need to make special content. You can use stock content and then manipulate it using different effects. On all plus machines, you'll get this V4 notch effects as well. So we turn off bypass. So there's a few different effects in here, which you can just use freely for any show. If you want to change what it looks like, you can adjust it in here, like that. Now, once you've made something that you really like, so I'm just going to build it out of effects. So for instance, we could do this, change the width of it. We might want to pull out a color. And then here we have presets. So it's possible to save this as a preset. So if we hit whole, record. Now what this has done, these filters here, it chooses which parts are all, will record everything that's in your mix view. Level will record this section here. Source will record this section here. So either media player or anything like that. Geometry is this section. Color, this section. FX1, this one. FX2, this one. Notch is obviously separate. And then beat bridge. We won't have time to go into today, but what that is that's a component that allows you to bring audio in, and it can react to the beat of the audio. So we've got a preset. If you want to name it, right click, give it a name. So this can just be red. And then we can use our preset, our filters, to either record just color presets. So if we just want to do a color one, so what we're going to record this. And see here, you can see it's only got one dot, which is how we know it's color. I could then make it blue. So now, for instance, because this has only got one filter on it, if I was to change the clip, something different. For example, this green one here. Now I can say make that red. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Choose a different clip. So I could say here we can change it to red, or we can make it blue. Again, let's give them a name. It's always good to name them. You don't do what I just did and get a bit confused about which one does what. We'll name this one red swirl. You can also name the banks as well if you want. So presets and the mixes page are a great way to use Hippotizer. Exactly. However you need to do it. And from using presets, you can actually do a lot of programming from there. Okay, has anyone got any questions about the mixes page? Or anything that I've missed or went a bit too quick over? No, everyone's happy? Okay. So all of the stuff that we've looked at so far, so these two clips, all of this, all of this, all of this, this. Okay, so all of this stuff here. This is all free when you buy a Hippotizer. But quite often you're going to want to put your own content into it. So to do that, we can go to our media player. Sorry, not media player. We'll go to media, and this allows you to import different clips. So to do that, we have the root, and then we have lots of different clips that have been imported here. So if I go here, I can create a subfolder. This one AC, and then we can just hit upload files. And if we go into the pictures, so there's a picture of a rainbow here. And this will now just import, you'll see it importing here, and then it will just appear into here. And then from that, we can then simply just click and drag it down into our media map. So if it's not in our media map at the bottom, you're not going to see it on your mixes page. If you click the settings cog here, this will take you to all of your media settings. So Here we have our different codecs. So we have FlexRes Performance, FlexRes Quality, Lossless, and Uncompressed. Generally, I'd leave it on FlexRes Performance unless you've encoded something and you're not very happy with it. Then you can try FlexRes Quality. Sometimes FlexRes Quality is better on LED walls because you won't get as much banding. But if you can leave it in Performance or Performance High Quality, you'll find you'll get a lot more from your machine. Underneath, we have our general encoding settings. So these are all our kind of general settings for encoding. Sync. This allows you to sync two machines together. So you put all of your media into your main machine and you can easily and quickly sync it across to your backup machine. It means you don't have to rebuild your media map, import all your content again for a second time because no one's really got time for that. We have advanced sync. This allows you, instead of sending all of the media, we could just send, for instance, our AC folder. You could add it and then it will show up. If you have a second machine, it will show up here and we can just sync this one folder rather than having to sync all of the media across. Watch folder, this allows you to create a folder on the local machine or on a NAS drive or a networked drive. It'll watch that folder. If you drop any content into it, it will automatically upload it into Hippotizer. And then we have the advanced tab, which is for our strata caddies. I don't have one here to show you, unfortunately. But they're little kind of drives, they're about this big, and they slide into the front of all of the Hippotizer machines there. Any questions about media encoding? No? Okay. So we're going to go back into our mixes page now. So once you've kind of created all of your things, you've got all your media in, dragged it into our media map so we can see it here. So this one, we dragged it into here, this one here. We have a mix master. So this is kind of controlling all four layers. In here, we have got 4 effects that you can use. We have master presets. So this will control the look. So for instance, if I was to come in here and I was to actually choose a clip. So for instance, we have this clip, and then on this one, we're going to use this one, and we're going to go subtract, add that in. Okay, and then on this one, we're going to use the loomer. Okay. So for instance, we might have it looking like this. This is the look. We can go into our mix master and we can save this as a preset with a look. So give that a name, logo loop, for instance. Yeah, and you can also record in here any extra effects. Pixel mapper, so this is where we turn pixel mapper on. So pixel mapper allows you to output ArtNet from your Hippotizer, or we might have a little look at that component if we get time towards the end. Got NDI send, so if you want to send out NDI from your Hippotizer, so if you've got a visualizer, a lighting desk, or anything like that that does NDI, then in here we can set it to enable it, send it out, and it will just automatically choose the resolution. So that's your mix master. So if you click the home button now, remember the top corner up here. We then have our viewports. Does HAP, so we just had a question here. Does HAP need encoding? So that's again back into the media. No, so if you have HAP file, it can automatically, it will just copy it across. So as long as it normally will take to copy that file, is how long it will take to go into Hippo. There's an option here, HAP file import method. So we have preserve, repack, or transcode. Generally, HAP files copy across fine. If for whatever reason there's a problem, you can choose to repack or transcode it if necessary. But generally, it will just copy across and it'll be much quicker to go in. We also have something called FlexRes tools. So if you're not able to export HAP anymore, because I know QuickTime or Apple did an update which stopped this. So if you're not able to export HAP, we do have a product called FlexRes tools, and there's a plugin in there for After Effects, also for the Adobe suite basically, which allows you to export it straight as FlexRes, and then it will just copy straight across without any problems. So we're going back to our home button and we're going to go now into the viewports. So if we remember what a viewport is, so remember it's the thing that connects our mix to our output. So it's kind of like, it's the patch, it creates the viewport between the mix and the output. So you might have multiple viewports per output, multiple viewports per mix. It's kind of, they kind of go hand in hand with each other. So again, on our viewport, we've got different effects. So you might want to use, there's an option for a soft edge effect. There we go, soft edge left, soft edge right. So you can bring that up and you should see, you can see there how it makes that side go black. Obviously you would have it a lot less obvious than that, and actually use it to blend. But that's an option of an effect you might want to use on the viewport. Got again color options here, so color pickers, moving things around. Geometry, so we can move our viewport geometry. Keystone, obviously, if you need to keystone your projector. And here we also have video mapper. So this tends to be where you would use video mapper, and this allows you to map it to an LED processor. So for a video wall or something like that, you might want to use video mapper. This is how you're supposed to do your warping. So here we can turn on warping and blending. So this allows you to warp your two projectors if you're on a curved wall, and equally to blend them together as well if you have multiple projector blend. What we're trying to do. There's also now an option in a viewport to turn on pixel mapper here as well. So it is here and in the mix master. Just depends what you're trying to output and what you want it to look like. And then we also have the NDI send here for any visualizer as well. Again, it's possible to create a preset. So for anything that you've created in here, I do recommend it if you're doing like a keystone on a particular blend or something like that, or moving geometry a little bit. I would always hit record and just create yourself a preset. It just gives you different stages to go back to if you need to, or you move something a bit far and you're like, oh, actually, let's go back and you can just start from where you've left off rather than having to start from the beginning. We also have here different options for live mask. So you can kind of see live mask was originally designed for the viewport. It was originally designed to bulk out pieces of set, as I was saying before. So exactly the same as it was in the layer, but this is on the viewport. Okay. Has anyone got any questions about any of that? No? Okay. So what we're going to look at now then is we're going to have a look at this configuration page. Okay. So this is what we would use normally to set up a Hippotizer. So Hippotizer is a bit, you can add the bits that you need. It's a bit like a toolbox, okay? So we add the tools we need for the job. Instead of carrying all of our tools around all of the time, which is going to be a bit heavy, and we want to be able to get the most out of our toolbox and use the space most effectively. So we add the components as and when we need them. So to do that, click configuration. So that's this home button up here. And then configuration. And you should end up in this view. Then we're going to click add. And then you can choose your component. So I'm just going to explain what each one does. If anyone's particularly interested in anyone, just write it down, or just let us know and we can talk about it in more detail. So we have Beat Bridge. So Beat Bridge allows us to bring audio into the system, and it allows the different parameters to react according to the audio. So if we have some audio coming in and it's kind of quite beaty, then every time it beats, you could say, okay, bring the level up to 4 when it beats, or zoom it to this point when it beats. So then it can really react to it. So this was designed for VJs, so you can set it to do a loop. You can go and get a drink from the bar or whatever, and then you can come back and then change it to something different. And that's where the Beat Bridge presets kind of came in from as well. We have CITP and DMX. So DMX allows you to control your system from a lighting console. It allows you, full control from your lighting desk, basically. CITP allows you to see thumbnails on your lighting desk, and also live previews on some lighting desks, and also some visualizers will accept CITP as a live preview. However, I know now that most visualizers are going over to NDI, and this will give you a much higher resolution look for what you're after. The engine, this is the default component, it's what's rendering out the content. Hippo Snapper will take a picture of your output and put it into your media manager. The LED and fan, this is just controlling the front LED. So all the Hippos have got an LED on the front of them. They should all be green. However, they can go amber, red, and blue, depending on the state of the system. So if it goes blue, it just means the system is busy, maybe encoding media. If it's red, there's a component with a critical error. And if it's orange, then it just means, generally means it's configuring or doing something. It's not outputting, but it's not got an error either. Macro Manager allows you to write a macro using Lua script. So for example, you could pull down the weather from a website and you could say, if it's sunny, then we're going to play this clip. If it's raining, we're going to play this clip. At 4 o'clock, if it's windy, we're going to play this clip. So depending on what's happening around it, you can use Macro Manager to really allow you to work out exactly what's going on and play different things at different times. The Media Manager we've looked at, this allows us to encode media into the system. Multi-controller. Now, multi-controller allows you to control the system from anything that's not a lighting desk. So you can use MIDI, TCP, OSC, any form of automation, like LabJack, so that's buttons, a Stream Deck. Basically, any way you can control Hippotizer, that's from anything that's not a lighting desk. That's what you'll need multi-controller for. It also allows you to do things like close shutters on the projectors. So you could say, okay, when we go to black, I want you to close the shutter on the projector. That's also an option in multi-controller. So anywhere you want to control something or control Hippotizer, you want to use multi-controller. We then have the Output Manager. Okay, the Output Manager we've talked about is how we kind of patch our outputs, what is control, so it's the default component again. Pin bridge, this allows you to join two pins together. So Hippotizer works with a pin tree, so this is our pin tree here. And each kind of attribute is a pin. So brightness, this is a pin. We have the RGB, this is a pin. So any kind of attribute we will call a pin in Hippotizer. So pin bridge allows you to join two of them pins together and control them together. So for instance, you might want to have mix 1 and mix 2 fade down at the same time. We can join them together in pin bridge and then we'll have a single pin just to drag down to 0. Pixel Mapper, this allows you to output ArtNet from Hippotizer and power any kind of lighting fixtures or LED tape or anything like that. And you can plug it in via ArtNet and then it will output that data. And you can play your video across your pixels. Preset Manager we've looked at. Screen warp, so if you've got kind of a curved wall that you're projecting onto, then you want to use screen warp in order to warp it so that it kind of looks correct on your curved wall. You can also warp it if you have to blend your projectors together, if you need to warp them to kind of get them lined up. Sync Manager, this is what you're going to need for timecode to come in, and also if you have multiple systems that you want to play back in sync with each other. So this is where Sync Manager would be used. Timeline, so we can use timeline to control our Hippotizer. It's a way of programming. We are about to get a brand new timeline, which is going to be very exciting, and that's coming in 4.6. So hopefully the next release of software will be 4.6. And hopefully it'll have a nice shiny new timeline in. Should be a lot easier to use. And then we have Video Mapper. So Video Mapper is used for LED walls when you're mapping an LED processor. So if you know how an LED processor works, generally all the tiles are put into the top corner. and it allows you to get all of the tiles in the right place, ready for the video mapper. So that's all of the different components. Does anyone have a particular one that they really like or they want to see?
Hi, can you hear me, Susie?
Yeah.
I would like to see a bit more on multi-controller, if that's okay, please.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we're going to add multi-controller. So we're going to select the multi-controller from our list, and then we just click add. And then once we've got our multi-controller in here, press the home button, and we're going to come back to this page. Now within Hippotizer, we can set up our own views. So you can see in mixes here, this is a view that's been created for you that you can use. But now with multi-controller, because it's a new component, we don't have a view for it. So we want to click here, and then we're going to right click, and we're going to give it a name. We're going to call it multi-controller. Click OK. We're going to select it. And then in this list here, from our pin tree, you will see there's one called multi-controller. Click the circle, and we're going to drag it out into our view. We can make it bigger, so use this lock thing here. You can move it around. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. And if you want to delete it, you can press this red cross just here, and that will delete it. So we're going to make it this big here. So in here, we have the different tabs. So if you remember, I was saying control sources and control targets. So this is things that we're using to control Hippotizer with, and things that we want to control Hippotizer. So things that we want to control with Hippotizer. So for example, this is where we put our projector for our projector shutters. If we've got a matrix or anything like that and we want to control, with that we'll go in control targets. So I'm just going to show you a basic Stream Deck I'll show you. So we're going to add Stream Deck. So in here, this is all the different ones that you can add. So this is exercise bikes, ArtNet, automation, black tracks, Disney Entertainment Automation Protocol, Green Hippo Automation Protocol, Kinesis, LabJax, MIDI, OSC, Pokies, PosiStageNet, PRG, RFID reader. So that one's new in this version. And if you've got like an RFID card, you can take it around and use that. Stage Tech, Stream Deck, and TCP Listener. So all of these things we can use to control Hippotizer with. So I'm just going to use the Stream Deck and click OK. Now in here, we can select our Stream Deck device. Now I don't currently have one connected, but it will be there. And then we've got the Stream Deck configuration. So I don't know if you guys really know what a Stream Deck kind of looks like, but these are all of the buttons. And it's possible to change the different keys. We can give it a name. So we could have a go button. Obviously, you can change the color of the text if you want to. Or you can add an image file. So our trusty rainbow, we can add in here again. Make this white, so we have a white rainbow. And this will all show up on your Stream Deck. So once you've done that, click OK. You can, of course, add pages, navigation, etc. Once you've done that, we have two options. We can use an action mapping, which will allow you to trigger things like a preset. So we can choose preset operation. And then it's simply a question of pressing the button on the Stream Deck. So we've hit learn mapping, press the button on the Stream Deck, and it will instantly be able to fire that preset. So if I hit test, you'll see there that it will fire that preset on there. If you want to choose what preset it fires, so we could say mix index 1, layer index 1, that's a layer preset, so we could do a mix preset. So again, if we now hit test, it should fire back our mix preset. So you can put them all onto your Stream Deck and fire them out. So it's possible to do pin mapping, so we could say turn on a level, turn off a level. Devices, this is for controlling things within Hippotizer. So controlling things like our matrix, if you want to switch to a backup machine, you might want to put that in there, etc. So that's multi-controller. It's got a couple more minutes. So if anyone's got any other questions, anything they want to see, shout away or type it in the chat box. Or I think we can unmute your mics as well if you want to, or you might be able to unmute your mics. Yeah, ask any questions that you would like to ask. Yeah, so I think after this, you should get an email. So we just had a question. Is there a link for next week's session as well, please? So I think after this session, you should get an email and it should hopefully have a link for next week's 3D session.
Yeah, so Hannah will send you all an email just after this one, and we'll send you a link to next week. So next week, it's the same time, next Thursday. And as I said earlier on, it's about 3D. So you've learnt an awful lot of 2D world. Next week is learning about 3D. So hopefully you've all found that very informative and useful. And hopefully you've all enjoyed spending an hour of a bleak Thursday learning from Susie. So next week, hopefully we'll have beautiful sunshine and learning. Oh, we've got a question from Dan. Had a show where the outputs going to his projectors had the Windows bar on them. Wasn't operating the Hippo, just blending. Why would that be?
Okay, so I've seen that happen before. There's a couple of reasons that could happen, but generally I've seen that happen when there's been no Zookeeper monitor connected. So all Hippos have got outputs. So when we're talking about outputs on a machine, so if for instance a cast has got two outputs, if it's got two outputs, which are two physical show outputs, but then it's also got a Zookeeper output or two Zookeeper outputs, I think, on a cast. So if there's no Zookeeper control connected, then that could put the this taskbar on the output. The other reason is that obviously it's a Windows machine, so it is possible for people to kind of right click on it and then go into your taskbar settings, and you can kind of set it to be on all your screens and do things like that. Or if it was in windowed mode, not in full screen mode, then that potentially might make it, but it should go on top. So I would say if it's in outputs in play, especially in play, you'll see in here. So you'll see here that there's a windowed icon just there. So if that's turned on, then you'll be able to see the start bar as well. But generally the engine should go on top. No worries.
Well, if there's no other questions, then I think we, there's another one. Can we access the recorded one? Hannah will be able to help with that, I'm sure. I'm sure she'll be able to send a link to you. So if there's no other questions, then thank you all very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed that, and we look forward to welcoming you again next week. Thank you very much, Susie. That was really good.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if anyone does have any questions, feel free to drop Hannah an email or me an email, and I'll happily answer any extra questions that maybe you've thought of after doing this, or you followed along after and you've got a question. Just get in touch. We'll more than happily answer any questions that you've got.